Welcome to another in the series, Sip and Chat, a place where we talk about the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. It's our pleasure this afternoon to be coming into your homes and to be talking about the goodness of the Lord. Welcome to another in the series, Sip and Chat, a place where we delve into matters and we provide perspectives and solutions so that we can be able to cope with whatever life challenges will present our way. We want to welcome our esteemed guest, legal counselor Anne Marie Bishop. She was with us last week as we discussed this important issue of domestic violence. We know for many persons it's a hush hush matter. We don't want it. It's a closed door matter, and we don't want anybody to know that we have been abused. But silence is never a cure. And the only result of silence is that the behavior continues and creates more victims. So here we are today. We want to look at review some of the things that we spoke about last week and to put into perspective the impact of domestic violence on children and on teenagers. And also from the legal perspective, what are some of the things that are available to the victims? Because what we have found out is that a lot of times persons stay because they think that they don't have any option. And so we're going to discuss to some extent what are some of those options that are available to the spouse, whichever spouse it is, as a matter of fact, because remember, the stats show that 40% of domestic victims are men and 60% are women. And of course, we know who the true victims along the way are, especially when there's children involved. And those consequences of domestic violence are not just for today, but they impact the child's life right throughout their existence. So let us delve into the matter. As I said before, my guest is here with us. She's very learned in this area and more. And we also want to look a little bit into mediation. So welcome again, Miss Bishop. It's my pleasure to have you with me this afternoon. The response last week was great. The only complaint I had was it was too short.
It was too short. Thank you, Dr. Tomlinson, for inviting me back. So we continue the conversation on domestic violence. But as you said, we're going to review it and look at the impact on the children and also look at the legal framework as well as mediation. But can you just define domestic violence for our audience before I continue?
Great. So last week we said that domestic violence was any kind of behavior pattern, a persistent type of behavior pattern in which relationally one tries to use power and control to basically subjugate, relegate somebody. And we also established that there are different types of abuse, right? There is physical abuse, which is probably one of the most obvious ones,
Yes.
right? Even though people try to conceal it, so there's physical abuse, there's sexual abuse where persons are, they're used against their will, even though it's relational, right?
Yes.
There's no consent, so it's
Yes.
abuse. It's when I want it on my terms in whatever way. Those are the kinds of things we're talking about. Then one of the ones that we didn't discuss last week as well is spiritual abuse.
Denying one party their decision to perhaps attend church or be part of a religious group.
Exactly. Or coercing as well.
Yes.
So it can happen both ways. And I think the recent issue that we saw in Montego Bay just brings a lot of things to light.
That's
because
true.
what we must remember is that as individuals and as adults, we have free will. We have our rights and the right to choose. So anything that seeks to hold us in a position of control and power
Yes.
is seen
Is
as
abuse,
abuse.
yes.
That's important. Stalking, emotional abuse. And I'm telling you, we could have a number of shows on this one, right? Because even as we talk about emotional abuse, that is one that cuts deep, 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 deep. And so sometimes persons will say, I didn't hit her. How can she say it's abuse? She wasn't hit. I didn't see any scar. But when you use words, and I really want to emphasize that the words that you say to people, they cut deeper,
Deep, very.
deep,
That
deep,
is so
deep.
true, Dr.
And
Leleith.
it helps to shape one's sense of self
Self.
and self-worth. So we would definitely have to have something to look more on about the impact of the spoken words on an individual. And of course, there's also economic, which we spoke about.
Right. And economic and financial abuse goes hand in hand.
Correct, because and just to enlighten if you're just joining us this week, because we know we have new viewers every week, and you need to call up someone and say you need to tune into MTM and watch the program. Because one of the things with financial abuse is that sometimes persons are told you shouldn't work. You might have all your
True.
abilities and all your gifts and your talents and so on, but you're told not to work.
And one of the reasons for that is that the other spouse wants to control you and to make you dependent on him.
Right. And each time that they withhold, they use the money by withholding the funds. They're basically controlling you because you don't have the resources, certain choices you can't make.
That
And
is
when you
correct.
make any attempt to probably ask for funds and so on, so it's really putting you in a subjugated position. So
Yes.
I want us to understand, we're not saying you cannot be told that, okay, a spouse can say to his wife, honey, babes, whatever you're called, I would like if you stay at home and, we will take care of the kids and so on and so forth. That's an agreement. That is
Yes.
what is important. An agreement where two persons come together. But when it is used as a form of control, that is where the abuse comes in.
Yes.
And
That's correct.
we spoke also about psychological impact. So what we want to delve deep into is that a lot of people, counselor, they stay because they think, listen, what are my rights? I've been married to this man. I never helped to buy the house. I mean, I've been a housewife. I don't contribute anything. Speak to our audience today about what are some of the legal things that persons are supposed to be aware of so that they don't see that they're crippled because of their situation.
Thank you, Dr. Tomlinson. From a legal perspective, the Domestic Violence Act protects the abused person and the children of the household in a number of ways, and we'll go into it briefly. We have the protection order, we have the occupation order, and there are other auxiliary orders that are tied to the Domestic Violence Act. So an application is made to the parish court, and each parish has a parish court with other courts, outstation courts. So an application, for example, let's say we are in St. Catherine. You may go to the Spanish Town Court office and apply for an order under the Domestic Violence Act. The clerks are equipped and able to assist. It's not that you need an attorney to do that. So you would attend the parish court and apply for the relevant orders.
And just for some of our viewers, because I know that you're comfortable
I'm
with your
trying to make
jargon,
it, yes.
right? But okay, so here is Miss Jones, right? And
Yes.
Miss Jones has been abused, and this is when she says enough is enough.
Yes.
So you're saying she goes to the parish court, probably exhausting, going to pastor, everybody saying stay, stay, stay. No, she probably just feel enough is enough. She's been battered, terrible pains in her bodies and so on. This is a tipping point now. So she's not going to get legal help. So she goes to the parish court. That's the first step.
Mrs. Jones can also attend the nearest police station to her home or anywhere she feel comfortable and make a report about the assault or the abuse, and the officers at the station can advise her. Take the report, give her a receipt, and sometimes the officers may speak to the other party in an effort to try and mediate between the husband and the wife or the spouses. Mrs. Jones can take it a step further by attending the parish court to seek the necessary orders under the Domestic Violence Act. The matter is put before the court ex parte, meaning it doesn't have to be served on the husband or the other party. So the matter would be put before the court at the earliest possible available time, because domestic violence matters are treated
with priority
and are treated as urgent. And the court will consider that there's a need for protection of the spouse and or the children, all the parties, the relevant parties, and the court may make a protection order to include the person who is the abuser not to go to the workplace of the abused person or their educational establishment or go to their home if they have moved out of the home. So that's a protection order. A breach of the protection order, Dr. Tomlinson, allows the police officer to arrest that individual and put that person in custody.
Okay, so let me see if I understand you now. So once somebody becomes a victim and to the point where they decide to take action,
Yes.
they can go to the police station, they get what we call a protective order.
Not at the police station.
At
They
the
go
to
right. They go
court.
to the police station to make a report. Yes.
So you get to, so you and someone is a victim of domestic violence. So they go to the police station, they make a report at the police station, and then they go to court with the receipt that they got and everything from the police station.
Right.
And you're saying, and I want our audience to understand this as well, that we know we have issues with the court system, but domestic violence is treated as an urgent matter. So it's not like you'd have to say, boy, I went to court and this like it's going to take me another 10 months or so. And you're saying it's a priority.
It's priority.
Okay. And so once you get the protection order, it stipulates the boundaries that the person, the perpetrator, is able to come so far and no more.
Right.
And
it's a very detailed document, and it outlines the section of the act that the perpetrator he will know or she will know the extent of what they can and cannot do.
excellent. So what we're saying to you is that the first step is never just to go to court, right? I mean, probably you
Right.
want to seek some kind of mediation.
Yes.
And when we talk about mediation, just explain to us what we're seeing. I mean, we have a general idea that there's a third party involved and trying to help. But talk to us about what are some, I know that you're also a mediator. So talk to us like some of the things that you delve into when you have a mediation session.
When we have a mediation session, it is a session involving an independent third party that will facilitate a discussion between two persons, for example, or persons who are involved in the issue, and the mediator will listen to both sides. And the parties will have an opportunity to share their concerns, their grouses, whatever the issue is, the parties will be allowed to share that information in a calm and controlled environment with a mediator. The mediator facilitates the discussion, but the agreement needs to come from both sides. It's not the mediator's agreement, it is the party's agreement.
So there's consent.
There is consent. Sometimes the mediation is not successful on the first occasion, and the mediator will invite the parties back for further discussion. But to go back to the Domestic Violence Act, Dr. Leleith, apart from the protection order, parties can also get what they call an occupation order, meaning the court will, if it sees fit, allow Mrs. Jones, for example, to occupy the property exclusive. Or if the property is big enough,
they can share
the property. The court will also has the power to recommend mediation, counseling to both parties in an effort to see if through communication and intervention, the parties can reach an amicable resolution for both of them.
All right. So there is the occupational order,
yes,
right? And in terms of as it relates to occupancy, because one of the things that sometimes persons feel is that okay, because it's his house, right? So is there a distinction between if I'm a common law wife versus if I'm
married in
to
the traditional way?
Do I have more access or less access because I'm a common law wife as opposed to if I'm married to the gentleman and I'm being abused?
No, the court does not necessarily differentiate between marriage in the traditional sense or common law marriage. And you know, in Jamaica, if you're living with somebody and you're both single for 5 years or more, you're regarded as husband and wife because you would have passed the 5-year mark, and that person becomes your common law wife or your common law husband.
Right.
And you are afforded the same rights as if you were married in the traditional way.
Okay. So what we're saying is that in the event that somebody feels that, boy, because I've been with this gentleman for so long, and it's his house, and I have been here for 10 years, 15 years, because in Jamaica we have a lot of those relationships.
Yes.
That's part of our culture, so on. You don't have to think that you are helpless and so on. That is why some of the women stay in the conditions, because
that's true.
They feel helpless. Like, how do I start over? How do I start over after this? But one of the things that we want to look at, legal counselor, is the impact of just not saying anything upon teenagers. One of the things that we find is that even in the womb, children can develop dysfunctionalities as a result of the mother
Yes.
being exposed to this, because she is going to internalize some of what is happening
Yes.
around her. And when those externalities begin to come part of her everyday life, it does affect the fetus. And so sometimes even just the natural developmental process of the children are delayed because of the stress
That's true.
that
That's
the
true.
child endures. So when we talk about domestic violence, we're not talking about the fact that somebody was hit and so on. We're just talking about just over time, from infancy as they develop into adulthood. So let us talk a little bit about, for example, when we see children today and they're very aggressive and so on. Sometimes we need to look on the home,
Yes.
because
Yes.
the research says that children who come from abused home are likely.
Yes. To be abusers themselves. Chaotic homes create chaotic children, and in effect create chaotic adults. So you will find that if children in a home that is very abusive, for example, let's say the male child tends to be an abuser in the future, and the female child tends to be passive and either chooses the wrong spouse or enters relationship with older men, or their self-esteem is affected. So in a lot of times, women tend to say they're staying in the relationship because of the children. They don't want to disrupt the children's life. But ladies, you're not acting in your child's best interest when you make those decisions.
Because one of the things that I just want to intervene there, legal counsel, because one of the things that is true is that we have had situation in the counseling, in setting where mothers are concerned that the child is not performing, and they tell you everything about he's not focused, he's not doing this, until you're able to delve deeper into the matter to say, okay, tell me what home is like.
And why is the child not focused? You want
Exactly.
to, there are other issues happening.
Exactly. So sometimes we try to deflect because, of course, we don't want nobody to know that we fight every night or something like that happens. So what we want to punctuate today is that the situations in the home, the fighting, the quarrel, and so on and so forth, is not just to. We're not just trying to say to you that you should get help for you, but you should also consider the children. I remember we had this aside discussion, and you were saying to me that a lot of times parents say that they're staying because of the kids, but
Yes.
sometimes they should move because of the kids.
And that is what we are saying here today. It's important for you to consider the long-term development of your children. It is better you move and start over than stay in the situation. The impact on your children psychologically is profound, and sometimes you may not see that immediately, but as they grow into adulthood, they become very aggressive themselves and they become abusers.
One of the things that we're finding out is that the effects of domestic violence on teens, for example, they have criminal activity, runaway, poor social skills.
Yes.
Because they just feel like, listen, I have to be aggressive and assertive.
Right, and sometimes they don't know how to communicate with their peers. Children who are in homes that are violent, they tend not to be able to appreciate love or show love.
They're very resentful because
Right, and
they
very
think that you get
defensive
too
at
close, you're
times.
getting too
Yes.
close, and when you get close to me, I'm going to let down my guard. And then when I let down my guard, like mommy let down her guard and said daddy loved her, that's when she was exposed. And even more importantly, legal counselor, one of the things that we find out is that sometimes even children themselves get in the crossfire.
Right,
Because they
that's
see
true.
daddy shove mommy, or daddy raises his hand at mommy, or in some instances literally, it connects.
Physical
And
violence, yes.
so, depending on the boy, even if he's little, he will try to get in and say, daddy, don't hurt mommy. And then he, depending on the anger of whichever spouse is the abuser, that child could also be, afflicted or inflicted with wounds as well.
Yes.
So I thought about it, legal counselor, and I said, there's a verse in the Bible that says, husbands should love your wives as
Yes.
Christ loved the church. As I thought about where, how could we resolve this matter of domestic violence? And I said, if we went back to the whole matter of love and
Yes.
respect for each other, and just learn to appreciate that we're different people.
Yes.
Coming into a relationship to complement
Each other.
each other. That is what is critical. We are not the same people. We are coming together to complement each other. And one of the things is that even sometimes when you're making things to fit to synchronize, you have to do different things for it to come together
Which means
cohesively.
it requires compromise and it
Exactly.
requires communication.
And it takes time. And some of the issues are not major issues that could not have been spoken about in a different manner.
Yes.
You understand? And one of the things that we're also aware of is that, especially in this time of COVID, when couples are almost, in some instances, locked in, we don't, this is not a slight issue, it's a major issue. Couples may have small homes and they're into this small space, and so everything that is not in keeping with their liking becomes very irritating and very aggravating. And so that's why one of the things that is encouraged, even in the lockdown, is that you take walks. You might not be able to go on the road, but you can walk around in your home.
And get creative as a family, do activities together, have movie nights, do your exercise.
Challenge each other.
Right.
And you do the challenge probably for the week. So you're always looking forward to doing something each time. And a lot of time we think we have to have a lot of money or we have to go outside to have fun, but there are many things that we can do. Just the other day, for example, I found an activity very engaging with my child that totally just, with work and everything, just gave me a new, at least a little bit more pep. My son, we were watching this show called The Squid Games, right? And I mean, probably had I seen it normally, probably I would not have watched it.
Yes.
Right? So I'm hearing a lot of people talking about this show. And knowing my nature, it is not a show I would normally watch. But because of the intrigue of the show, it bonded myself and my family and my friends even closer because we were trying to see who would reach to the other game first and be able to analyze. And there are a lot of lessons in it, even though it was just a movie. But what we're saying is that as we look on this issue of domestic violence, there's something that says grievous words stir up anger. We have to look at what we say to people, how we relate to each other, and just try to say, okay, I'm feeling this emotion right now.
Yes.
How do I control this emotion? Maybe I should just go and sleep. Maybe I should just go outside. Maybe I should have some water. Maybe whatever.
But the Bible also speaks about a soft answer turning away wrath. Sometimes is how you communicate. You have to be mindful of your spouse's feelings as well, and find a way to communicate in a manner that is respectful to each other,
right?
Respectful to your children. Listen to your children and be in tune with what is happening within your immediate space.
Right. And a lot of times, because we were the ones who say something or do something, whichever spouse, and somebody express how they feel, then they say, but why you feel away about that? That's not the issue. The issue is whatever was said affected me. Yes. So what you want to know is like, okay, then now that I'm aware, you can ask, is there a different way I could have said it?
Right. Exactly. That's
so
correct.
I think the more, as we look on this issue of domestic violence, I think that the more that we are concerned about people and their emotions, especially relationally, then we will have better cohabitation of individuals.
Yes.
Because it's so important. And just looking at some of the impact, right? We have to understand that it does affect people. And even with men, people, a wife or a spouse, a girlfriend might say something to her husband, and then she said, "Yeah, big man, you're tough. Where you take that up on your head for?" No, because everybody has feelings,
right? And based on our culture, men feel that they need to be macho and not show emotion, but that's not entirely correct.
Right.
Persons need to communicate within their relationship, and fathers need to show that yes, they need to build that relationship, positive relationship with their children, and also both male child and female child within the home. And it's important how the parents communicate with each other. It will help the children to communicate with their peers. You find that children of domestic violence are also perceived as bullies in the school environment. They don't know how to communicate or speak their mind without being aggressive. Right. So the impact on children is profound.
It's very, very, very profound. As we say, they often go on to become perpetrators of domestic violence themselves, right? And so one of the things that we're seeing today as we're about to wrap up is we want to add a little bit more to the whole matter of coping strategies.
Yes.
We encourage people to become part of groups, you know.
Yes.
In Jamaica, we say, he that keepeth his mouth, keepeth his life. So we have this culture of do no evil, see no evil. But the truth is that people are victims and you don't
Yes.
survive if you're a victim. You
We,
have to make the choice to be a survivor.
that
And
is correct,
sometimes
yes.
part of being a survivor means you have to get up and not physically get up, but emotionally as well. You have to get up from where you are and say to yourself,
Enough is enough.
enough is enough. My life is more than this. You understand
That
what I'm
is
saying?
true.
You
That's
have to
true.
get up emotionally, and that is why you need the support systems around you. And as I said, if you don't want to trust anybody, there's a lot of DV hotlines that you can call,
Yes.
persons you can go to. Even at the police station, there are people, there are mediators in the court that you can go to. So you know you might not
There's
want
a
to tell
victim support
victim
unit.
support unit.
There's restorative justice. There's enough
CSJP.
support system there, whether you're the male being abused or you're the female who's being abused. There are hotlines for children to call. No. So it is important, as you have said, Dr. Leleith, for persons to say enough is enough. Do not stay in an abusive situation because you're saying, um, I'm not sure where I'm going to live, how I'm going to afford this or that. The children have to go to school, all of that. All of that is important when you make these decisions, but seek counseling, seek advice, and there is help out there. You don't have to stay in that situation. You can speak to the police officer when you make the report to the station. You can speak to your pastor or the justice of the peace. You can seek legal advice. You can go to the court's office and speak to the clerk at the court, at the parish court. So there is enough support groups out there. There's Women's Inc.
Yes,
And there
there
are
is.
other private organizations willing to help you and to advise you. We are saying that don't worry about whether you're going to get the house or not get the house or all of that. The important thing is to deal with your mental health and that of your children and your safety. And thereafter, you deal with the division of property because all of that can be dealt with. Don't worry about whether your name is on a title or not. It's the matrimonial home. Maybe
And
you
some
didn't
things
work
that
for a
you are
while.
worrying about, they're already okay.
Exactly, and the lawyer can advise you. So the immediate concern, ladies and men who are abused, is to secure a safe environment for yourself and your children,
Right.
and then deal with the other issues. Because a part of the Domestic Violence Act, the court can attach auxiliary orders that include maintenance of the children. The court can also attach orders that include the use of the furniture and the household items.
Right.
So it's not like you have to move out with your too long hand, so to speak. You can actually get use of the furniture and other items within the house.
Well, domestic violence continues to be a major concern in our society, but one thing we are certain of, silence does not help.
Doesn't.
Here at MTM, we have a counseling center, and we will run the number across the screen. Any help that you need, you can call that number, and we will try to assist you in the best way possible. Remember, your health, emotionally and mentally, is your concern. So therefore, the choice is yours. You need to get up physically, or if you need to get up emotionally, help is available. Once again, on behalf of the team here at Tip and Chat, we want to say to you, you have a right to be here. You're a child of the universe. Live the best life that you can. Take care of yourself. Thank you so very much.
Amen.